Here's a, how shall I put this? I'm gonna make chicken stock from leftover scraps, like food preparation scraps, like onion peels, carrot peels, celery, stuff like that. And then leftover chicken bones from when I always save the bones, you know, and freeze them. And I make chicken broth out of it. Here's a little random piece of chicken. I think it's chicken thigh, but I'm not sure, but it's the last piece of chicken we have. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that in. It's got some fat on it and should make pretty decent chicken broth. So what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna go ahead and put in all my bones. There we go. And then the chicken, and then all of this leftover kitchen scraps. It's mostly onion, but I got some peppers in there. I've got some carrot peel. Oh, there's some chicken too, right there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yep. So now, I'm gonna go get some filtered water, and I'll be right back. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put 6 pints of water in here. Because I want to make 6 pints of chicken broth. Okay, we'll slap the lid on. And then we're just going to go to mode here. Oh, turn the power on first. Sorry, my bad. Gotta turn on. And then it should be on low. And it's going to sit here for about 8 hours on low. If you look and see, oh, cool. This has been about 8 hours. At some point I turn it on high. So we've got a pretty good broth. We can see that. Look at the color.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
And the fat, right? Okay.
Yeah, let me focus on
Yeah. The color and the fat, right? So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take this off of the slow cooker, and we're going to put it on the back burner of our stove with no heat, and we're going to let it come down to room temperature, and that could take anywhere from 6 to 8 hours. The reason why this works is that our kitchen's pretty cold. Even in the summer it's cold, so like I only recommend doing this if your kitchen is cold, because we're gonna take it down to room temperature and probably overnight, and that's kind of risky, and I understand it, but the most important thing, it comes down to room temperature, and then we're gonna put it in the refrigerator, and then we're gonna let it go cold, and all the fat is going to solidify on the top of the chicken broth, and then we'll go about canning it after that. So this is going to come out, and it's probably going to sit overnight because my kitchen is cold. Has to come down to room temperature, and that's probably going to happen in the middle of the night, and since my kitchen is cold, the temperature is going to be safe.
And you keep the lid on?
I keep the lid on.
Okay.
Keep the lid on, and once it comes down to room temperature, I'm going to put it in my refrigerator to chill, and then we'll move on from there. We started my version of what chicken broth is yesterday. So it's a bunch of like vegetable scraps and leftover bones and like a piece of chicken that it was the only one left, so it's not going to serve us that well, so I went and put it in there too. We're going to tie our hair up. I don't know if this is going to be a thing or not, but I just want to demonstrate it because no one seems to keep their hair up when they cook on camera. So here you can see the chicken broth, and yeah, I admit it doesn't look too great. But what we have here is like the fat's solidified on top. So I'm going to skim that off, I think, into something. Hold on a minute. Some people like to keep the fat. I don't really need to because I cook with fat. So I'm just going to skim this off the top. Oops, not too much. Got to keep the broth inside the pot. It's good enough for government work. Okay, so I'm just going to put that there. Now, you'll notice here I've got a pot and a strainer. In the next clip, what you're going to see is I'm going to have all my canning supplies laid out. And so what has to happen is all this broth has got to come up to over 200 degrees, probably 220. And then the jars I'm going to prepare have also got to come up to that same heat. So the broth and the jars are the same temperature. And then you slap the lid on them, and then you can them. And I'll get to that. I'm getting ahead of myself. But the reason we're putting this back on the heat, I'm fixing to can it, and it has to come back up to temperature. Okay? And when we come back, I'll have that exact temperature that I need to bring it up to. Okay? So I'm going to strain all this out. It's given up its life. Sometimes if I find a good piece of chicken in here, I might give it to the dogs, but you're not really supposed to because it's it's got onions in it. So
this is just getting all the solids.
All the solids out. Yep.
Okay. Okay, so this is the strainer.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, and we compost, but since this has been like cooked with meat, we're not going to do that. We're just going to throw it away, unfortunately. I don't like to put bones or meat in my compost. Or butter or oil. Next we're going to do is I'm going to attempt to get all of this into there without spilling it everywhere. So drum roll, please. How about that?
Good job, babe.
Woo! There we go. Okay, so I'm going to put this on the back burner and start to bring it up. When canning, there are some things you need to be careful of. I hope I can explain this as clearly as possible. I freshly washed with soap and hot water these jars. They have to be clean and mostly clean and dry. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to look at these lids. You have to inspect the lid. I've pulled these out of a fresh box of lids and seals, but I don't see any rust or dents. Okay, goes double for this. There can be no rust and no dents on these. They look pretty good. Sometimes you can reuse them, but they have to be looking almost exactly like this. They have to be in this condition. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sterilize my seals. The kettle of water over here, this is really handy for sterilization. It's just come to the boil, and I'm going to bring this over here and pour it on top of my, I guess these are lids too, but they're sealing lids. I'm going to make sure that it's covered. So that's going to sterilize my lids. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to can 3 jars of broth at one time, because that's all my canner can hold, and we'll get to that in a minute. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pour this hot water into the jars so they're coming up to temperature. All right. So they got to be at boiling temperature. Okay. And then over here, my broth is about, it's my thermometer is saying it's 209. It should read 212. So we're almost there. So this is an Instapot. My brother and sister-in-law kindly gifted us, I think, for Christmas, the first year we were married. And I was interested in canning. And so I looked up directions on how to can with an Instapot. And every channel that I saw on YouTube about the instructions on this said, don't do it in an Instapot. So then I went on to look at hot water canners and pressure cooker canners. And the more I looked at the equipment I had here and that equipment, it was kind of similar, the process. So I decided to try it, because there is on this one, I don't know what, this is a really old model, but on this model, there's a pressure cook button right there, and it'll pressure cook these cans for over 45 minutes around, and that's kind of what you need. You have to keep it at pressure for 45 minutes or over in order to can properly. And so I tried it, and I'm not saying like you should can this and start selling chicken broth. This is for our family, and I'm doing this for our family. I wouldn't distribute it to other people just in case there's a problem. But we've never had a problem. I've canned a lot. I've canned beans in this, dry beans, wet beans. I've canned chicken broth. So far, that's all I've attempted.
We depend on that chicken broth all the time.
Yeah.
We use that.
Yeah.
At least once or twice a week, it seems.
And there's a couple of additives that I'm going to put in my chicken broth that can help with the pH inside the product. I'm going to add a little salt. I'm going to add a little citric acid. So like it's going to hopefully keep the thing preserved, but I've done it without, and it's always been fine. We'll get to what you want to look for in a canned product once we've gone through the process, but I just want you to know that I've used my Instapot well, and it's been fine. Like I've created great seals on my cans. We've never had any of them come open, come loose, none of that. So let's move on to the next step.
Yep.
This sediment you see is like unfiltered. I don't filter my chicken broth, so all this is just like residue from the vegetables and the chicken and the bones that I can with. And as you can see, that seal is on really tight.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're at 210, but as you can see, it's boiling. So I'm thinking there's a flaw in my thermometer. So I'm going to go ahead and take it out. Okay. So I'm going to grab, hopefully without spilling, these jars. Put them right over here. Okay, so what I'm going to get is the salt, the citric acid. That's ready. this. Okay. I'll try to explain what all these are in a minute. So I don't know what the official term for this is, but what I like to do is like, if it's too hot to hold, so I want to come over here. I'm going to dump this hot water inside the Instapot so it can start heating up, because you want this chamber hot before it starts. And got that. Oh, got one more thing. So now you take your funnel, you fill your jar. Make sure that your jar is hot and your liquid is hot, because you don't want to put cold liquid into a hot jar or vice versa. Need a bigger ladle.
Yeah, I know.
But I'll just do one for you, and you guys get the. I might do two. I might pick up a bigger ladle in a second. So as you can see, the jar needs about to the lip, to that first lip right there. That's the head space you need to can. And that's pretty much the rule. An inch of head space, roughly. That's roughly an inch. Okay. So now I'm going to take this out. Put that there. And this is vinegar in a freshly clean, sterilized paper towel. You're going to put this around the lid. There you go. Then I'm going to take a little bit of citric acid. I'm not even going to, this is like a dash. Like I'm not even going to fill this. This is a 1/4 teaspoon. I'm not even going to fill it up. I'm just going to put a dash like that in there.
Show me the measuring.
It's a quarter teaspoon, but I'm just using a dash. Okay. And then this is salt. None of this is necessary, because like if you care about, what's going into your food, or like how salty your chicken broth is, you can totally do this without. I'm just showing you what I do sometimes, Okay. Now, this is a magnet, and I'm going to come over to the seal, pull that out without touching it, bring it over here, put that down, and then it's just easier. There. Okay, now, this is for the can. I'm going to go over here and set it inside the Instapot. There you go.
Nice.
Okay, so we'll do one more. And this I can just go ahead and throw in the sink.
You're not going to add any more water?
No, it should come just to the bottom of that net,
gotcha.
Steamer basket
Steamer.
thing. Yeah.
I have to admit, I bought her these ladles off of Amazon recently because they were a good price, and we wanted something that was all metal. They just turned out to be
We probably needed
a
bigger
small.
size.
Yeah.
These are great, but we need a couple big ones. Okay, almost there to the line. go. So I'm going to move this to a simmer so we don't boil away all the chicken broth, because this is going to be sitting for a minute. I believe I sterilized the lid first, but I'm going to do it this way. Go just a dash. That was citric acid. And that's salt. And oh shoot, I gotta wash this off. Yeah, but I forgot to vinegar the lid. I dropped the magnet. Okay. Vinegar the lid. Come over here and grab a seal. Pop her on. There you go. And, oh, here. Here's another tip, right? You can only do 3 at a time because you really don't want the jars to touch if you can help it. Sometimes I'll open it and they'll have gone against each other, and that's kind of bad. But as I said before, I've done this many times and I've never had a problem. Never had a problem. Not really, just never had a problem. So I'm arranging the jars like so. It's nice and warm inside this pot. So I'm going to close it up. Oh, I got to tell you one more thing. Okay, so always inspect the seal on your Instapot. Make sure there's not any cracks. Mine's kind of yellowing a little bit, but there's no cracks. It's extremely flexible and it's clean. Okay. I'm gonna close the valve and then hit pressure cook. You see?
You hit pressure cook right here.
Yeah, pressure cook. Hit pressure cook.
Yep.
Right? And you can see it's gonna be working for an hour and 15 minutes, which is way more, which is just exactly what you need to can. You know, you have to bring it to a temperature for a certain amount of time, and I believe that's 45 minutes to an hour. You have to hold that temperature. And what it'll do is it'll come up to temperature and then it'll pressure cook for 45 minutes. And it works every time.
Okay, but you said you have to close the seal up.
Close the valve.
Make sure that it's closed.
Because that's how you keep the pressure in.
Gotcha. Right. Yeah.
Okay. The pressure cooker just went off. So what we're going to do is move it to the edge, because we're going to open this valve and be very careful, because the steam's going to explode out of it. Hopefully. There. What you're going to do is wait till all the steam releases. So now there we go. So now I'm going to take one of these cans out. I want to show you what it looks like. Go. Okay. Now you can see it moving around in there. It's bubbling.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Go. All right, so you got to set these kind of apart from each other. And they sit here for 24 hours all by themselves.
And we want to hear the pop.
Yep, and we want to hear, hopefully we'll hear it right away, but I don't know if you can see catch it on camera. That nipple right there,
I can.
that
Yeah.
raised part.
Yeah.
Okay. When you've canned your broth successfully, that nipple will suck in.
Depress.
Yeah.
And then is it's not really important when that happens, just as long as
It has to happen.
Yeah, it has to happen. But
if it doesn't happen, then you have a bad seal, and nothing horrible is going to happen. You can just put that can in the refrigerator and use it like within a week or so.
Okay. And then is there like a usual time? Like usually it happens
within a minute.
Well, I thought it was like sometimes we're sitting there and like 20 minutes later it goes pop.
Well, hopefully not, but it should happen pretty soon.
Okay. Cool.
But you'll hear the pop, and then this little dome will be will depress.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't do that, like I said before, if it doesn't do that, your seal isn't good, and it's not. You don't have to throw out the contents. You can put it in the refrigerator after it cools completely down. Like this is going to sit 24 hours and cool completely down.
But it just won't stay like for 2 years.
No.
Right.
It has to be used. It has to be used within a week.
Okay.
And that's it. Just to recap some very important things. Make sure that your chicken broth is at 212 boiling. Make sure it's at boiling. Make sure that your jars are washed with soap and water and then sterilized with the hot water to bring it up to temperature. So your glass jars will be the same temperature as the broth you're putting it in. Be sure to disinfect your lids and your seals, and then with vinegar go around the outside of the mouth of the jar before you put the lids on. Okay? And then you're going to put the lid on. I didn't mention this. You're going to screw this lid on, and it doesn't have to be tight. It can just be finger tight. So like there's no need to really screw it on. The reason why is that there's a chance that if you screw this on too tight, the jar might break. It might. I have had a jar break on me once, and that is because I did not make sure that my temperatures were the same for the broth and for the jar. I did not make sure that happened, and 2 jars broke. That's scary, but it's not the end of the world. And my pressure cooker, this thing didn't explode. Nothing ever happened that was wrong to it. Things I love about canning. It saves on like recycling, because like the only thing that really goes bad is this seal here, this thing. The edges, if they're bent, you can't use them, right? So like that's the only wasteful part. But it does save money because like I can can my own beans, pintos, black beans, white beans, chickpeas, and it's so convenient to have it there, and dried beans are cheaper than buying them already canned and already cooked. It's a fun project to do, to use up table scraps. I love that too. I get to save all the bones from anything I make. Shrimp shells. I've made shrimp stock before. I've made, so you get to keep a lot of stuff you would throw away. We also solved that big problem with like, now we have a compost bin because we're going to start gardening. So that also saves it. But like, I hate wasting food. I hate food waste. I was trained really well in a kitchen by a good chef, and he taught me never to waste food and always figure out something to do with the table scraps. So yeah. Oh, we got a dump. This one went down. Look, right there.
Nice.
can do a comparison, that one to that one.
Yeah.
Yep. So we got a good seal on that one.
Beautiful.
So anyway, hope you learned a lot from this. It's totally worth it, in my opinion, to do this. Making your own chicken broth is delicious, and you know what's in it. You know what went into it. You know, there's another one. It went down. You know what's in your ingredients. You know, there's not preservatives and stuff like that. So it's just, a little thing I do for us.